The rain fell hard on the small human village that night, the kind of rain that made the streets empty and the world silent. Daniel sat alone in his tiny wooden house, listening to the storm as he fixed an old lantern on his table. He liked quiet nights, but this night felt different. The air felt heavy, like something dangerous was moving in the dark. Even the wind sounded strange, almost like faint whispers. Then it came a knock, not loud. Not normal, just one soft knock. Followed by silence. Daniel froze. No one visited him at night. No one walked in this weather. And no one knocked so gently during a storm. He stood up slowly, his heartbeat loud in his ears. Another knock came, this time trembling, like someone too weak to knock harder. He walked to the door, every step feeling heavier. When he opened it, he expected maybe a traveler or a neighbor needing help, but instead, she was there, a woman, not human, an alien. She stood in the rain, shaking like a leaf, her clothes torn, her silver hair plastered to her skin. Her eyes glowed faintly blue in the darkness, filled with fear so deep that Daniel stepped back without thinking. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s by human standards. But there was something ancient in her presence, like she had seen too much pain already. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, I need shelter. I will do anything. I can pretend to be your wife for one night. Just say it if someone comes, please. Don't let them find me." Daniel stared at her in shock. A stranger. An alien. And she was begging him to pretend she was his wife? Why? Who was after her? And why was she so terrified? Rainwater dripped from her hands as she held them together tightly, as if praying. She kept looking over her shoulder into the darkness behind her. Daniel followed her gaze, but saw only shadows and falling rain. But something told him those shadows were not empty. Someone or something was searching. "Who is chasing you?" Daniel asked carefully. Her lips shook. "They will kill me. And if they see me here, they will kill you too." Her words punched through the cold air like lightning. Daniel's first instinct was to close the door. This was trouble. Dangerous trouble. He was just a simple man living a quiet life. He did not want alien clans or hunters knocking on his door. But then he looked at her again, her trembling body, her terrified eyes, the deep cuts on her arms as if she had been running through thorns or breaking free from something worse. She was hurt, alone, desperate, and something inside Daniel refused to let her stand there in the freezing rain. "Come inside," he said softly. She gasped with relief and stepped in quickly, shutting the door behind her as if the darkness outside might jump in. Her breathing was fast, unsteady, like she had been running for hours. Water dripped from her clothes onto the wooden floor. Daniel offered her a blanket. She wrapped it around herself tightly, still shivering. She didn't even sit. She just stood near the wall, staring at the windows like someone might break in any second. "What's your name?" Daniel asked gently. She looked at him for a long moment, as if deciding whether to trust him. "Lyra," she finally said. "My name is Lyra." Daniel nodded. "I'm Daniel. You're safe here for now." Lyra flinched at the word safe, as if it was something she didn't believe in anymore. Then she whispered, "Daniel, if you hear strange sounds tonight, don't look outside. Don't open the door. Promise me." "Why?" Daniel asked. Her eyes turned darker, almost glowing. "Because they can smell fear. And they always come back for what they lost." Thunder roared outside. The lights flickered. The wind howled as if warning him. Daniel suddenly felt it. The world outside was not empty. Something dangerous was moving through the rain. Something hunting. Lyra walked closer, lowering her voice. "If they find me here, they will think you helped me. They do not forgive help." Daniel swallowed hard. He did not know her story. He did not know her enemies. But he knew one thing, he had already stepped into her danger. The storm grew stronger. Lyra stood near him, shaking. And then another knock came. Louder, patient, not human. Daniel and Lyra both froze. The night had just begun. The second knock echoed through the small house like a cold hand gripping Daniel's heart. Lyra slowly stepped back from the door, her breath thin and shaky. Her glowing blue eyes fixed on Daniel, silently begging him not to answer. Daniel held up a hand, telling her to stay quiet. The knock came again, slow, heavy, and too calm for a visitor. Whoever stood outside was not afraid of the storm, not bothered by the darkness. They were waiting, listening. Daniel moved carefully to the window, but Lyra grabbed his arm so fast he almost dropped the lantern. "No," she whispered sharply. "Don't look. They sense movement. They feel attention." Daniel stared at her. "Lyra, who are they?" She closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. "Hunters," she whispered. "My clan's hunters. Once they mark someone, they follow until either they catch the target or die." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "They're after you?" Lyra nodded slowly, her silver hair falling over her face. "They are closer than I thought. I thought I lost them in the forest, but they tracked my scent." She swallowed hard. "They always do." The quiet tap of claws scraped against the outside wall. Daniel's stomach twisted. Claws, not boots, not shoes. Something with natural weapons was circling his house. Lyra moved to the far corner, wrapping the blanket tighter around herself. She shook in small violent tremors, as if memories were clawing at her from inside. Daniel noticed faint marks on her wrists, deep, red, and fresh. Shackles, metal, restraints. "Lyra, did they hurt you?" Daniel asked softly. She did not answer. Instead, she leaned her head against the wall, staring at the floor. "I escaped," she murmured. "That is all that matters." Daniel sat opposite her. He wanted answers but didn't want to push her into more fear. Outside, the steps grew slower, heavier, more deliberate. Whatever was out there was searching carefully. Intelligent, patient. Lyra pressed her hand against her neck, wincing. Daniel saw something under her collar, glowing faintly, a small triangular symbol burned into her skin. "What is that?" he asked. She pulled the blanket higher to hide it. "A claim," she whispered. "They marked me as property. Property of my clan's leader." Anger tightened Daniel's jaw. "A claim? Like ownership?" Lyra's shaking grew worse. "Yes, and if they find me here, they will think you are stealing what is theirs. They will not leave you alive." Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. He never imagined something like this. He was just a simple human living a peaceful life. Now a frightened alien woman sat trembling in his house while monsters prowled outside. He exhaled slowly. "Lyra, why me? Why knock on my door?" She lifted her eyes to him, and Daniel saw the truth. They were filled with shame, fear, and something like desperation. "Because humans are the only ones who help without asking for anything," she said quietly. "Your kind is strange. Gentle even when you are afraid. I needed someone who would not sell me back for a reward." Daniel shook his head slowly. "Someone would do that. Many," she whispered. "My clan put a high price on me. Anyone who returns me can demand anything they want." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "Why? What makes you so valuable?" Lyra looked away and did not answer. That silence told Daniel everything. Her secret was something dangerous. Something powerful. Something worth killing for. The wall outside groaned as if something pressed against it. The lantern flickered violently, casting long shadows across the room. Lyra covered her ears suddenly, her face twisting in pain. "They are calling," she whispered, her voice small. "Their minds. They're trying to pull me back." Daniel frowned. Pull you back? She nodded, trembling. They can speak without sound. They push thoughts inside my head. They want me to come out. Daniel felt a protective heat rise inside him. You're not going anywhere. Lyra stared at him with wide, almost disbelieving eyes. Daniel, you don't understand. Humans cannot fight them. Maybe not, Daniel said. But this is my home. You're under my roof. And I won't let anyone take you. Her eyes softened, just a little. As if no one had ever spoken for her before, the hunters outside growled low. Deep, almost inhuman, Lyra stepped closer to Daniel, whispering, if they break in, do not stand in front of me. They want me, not you. Daniel shook his head. That doesn't matter. You're here now. And I'm not letting them hurt you. Lyra stared at him as if trying to understand a new kind of courage. A human kind. Outside, the growling stopped. Silence fell. A silence too perfect. Too controlled. Too planned. Lyra whispered. They are not leaving. They are waiting for the fear inside to grow. Daniel clenched his fists, ready for whatever came next. The night wasn't over. The real danger was just beginning. The silence outside was worse than the knocking. Daniel felt it in his bones. Something was waiting. Something with patience far beyond human understanding. Lyra moved slowly to the center of the room, her blanket slipping from her shoulders, her breath shallow as if every second hurt her. Daniel tried to look calm, but his heart pounded like a drum in a war zone. He held the lantern close, its dim glow pushing back the darkness only a little. Shadows moved across the room each time the flame flickered, and every shadow made Lyra flinch. Suddenly, a low rumble came from outside. Not thunder. Not wind. A growl. Deep, ancient, hungry. Daniel stepped back instinctively. What kind of creature is that? Lyra's lips trembled. It is not a creature. It is a soldier. Daniel blinked. A soldier? Soldiers weren't supposed to growl. But Lyra wasn't finished. Our hunters are trained with gene-mixed bodies. They smell better than animals. They run faster than machines. And when they hunt, they enjoy fear. Daniel felt cold rush through him. The growl grew louder. Lyra pressed a hand to her chest, her breathing turning sharp, painful. They are using the scent field, she whispered. They are searching for my life mark. Daniel frowned. Your life mark? She hesitated, then pulled down her collar again, revealing the glowing triangular symbol burned into her skin. This mark connects me to my clan's mind chain. They can sense if I am alive, if I am scared, if I am close. Daniel felt anger rise again. So they branded you like an object? Lyra's voice broke. I was meant for a role I never wanted. Before Daniel could ask more, something scraped across the window. A long, harsh drag. Metal against glass. Claws. Lyra single quotes, knees weakened. They found the house. Daniel's eyes shot to the window, but he remembered her warning, don't look. He forced himself to stand still, even as every part of him wanted to check. The scraping stopped. Silence. Then a voice, a whisper so soft it seemed to slip under the door like fog. Lyra. Daniel's blood ran cold. They're calling your name. Lyra shut her eyes tight. Do not listen. Do not speak. They imitate voices. Sometimes they use the voices of the dead. Sometimes the voices of your loved ones. Daniel's breath caught. They know who I am? Lyra shook her head. Not yet. But if they sense your fear, they will. The voice outside changed, shifting from soft to sharp, like metal breaking. Lyra, return. You belong to us. Lyra covered her ears. No, I am not a thing. Not anymore. Daniel moved closer to her. You don't have to go. She looked at him with eyes full of sadness. Daniel, they do not stop. They do not get tired. They will search every corner of this world. Then we'll hide, Daniel insisted. Lyra stared at him like she wanted to believe but couldn't. Hide? From soldiers who can track fear. Who can smell thoughts? Daniel. Humans are brave, but this is different. Outside, the whispering faded. Another sound took its place, heavy breathing. Right next to the wall. Slow, confident. Something pressed against the wooden boards of the house. The walls creaked like they were being tested for weakness. Daniel grabbed the small metal rod he kept near the fireplace. Useless against whatever was out there, but he needed to feel prepared. Lyra watched him with wide eyes. If they come in, run, please. They only want me. I'm not leaving you, Daniel said, voice firm. Lyra shook her head. Daniel, humans are not built for fights like this. Then they'll learn, Daniel replied coldly. The house shook suddenly, as if something massive hit the outer wall. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra stumbled. Daniel grabbed her arm to keep her steady. Then came the worst part. Silence. Total. Complete. Daniel whispered. Did they leave? Lyra's face turned pale. No, when they go silent. It means they are listening. For what? Daniel asked. For breathing, she whispered. Daniel held his breath instantly. Lyra did too. The room felt like a cage filled with waiting death. Seconds passed. Longer still. Then a faint tap. Not on the door. Not on the windows. From above. The roof. Daniel looked up slowly. The wood above them creaked again, as if something crawled there, sliding across the wet shingles. Something with claws. Daniel whispered. Lyra? What do we do? Lyra swallowed. Her voice was fragile. We wait. And hope they cannot break through. Another claw dragged across the roof. Another growl rolled through the walls. Daniel stood between Lyra and the door, gripping his useless metal rod. The hunters had found them, and the night was far from over. The claws on the roof finally stopped moving. But the silence after them felt even heavier. Daniel and Lyra stood close to the center of the room, afraid to even breathe. The hunters could be listening, watching, waiting for one mistake. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, Daniel whispered, Lyra, they won't leave, will they? Lyra slowly shook her head, her silver hair sticking to her damp cheeks. No, not until they find me. Or until they confirm I am far away from this house. But they know I was here. They smell my fear. They feel my life mark. I cannot hide from them forever. Daniel clenched his jaw. Why are they so desperate to get you back? Lyra looked away, her eyes filling with a sadness too deep for her young face. She tightened the blanket around her body as if trying to protect herself from old wounds. Daniel stepped closer. Lyra, please. If I know the truth, maybe I can help. She hesitated. It was clear she had been running alone for a long time. Trust was not something she gave easily. But Daniel's voice was gentle, steady, human, in a way she wasn't used to. Finally, she whispered, Daniel, I was not born to be free. Daniel frowned. What does that mean? My clan, she continued softly, they do not treat females like humans treat women. Every female in my clan is chosen, selected before birth for a purpose. Some for battle, some for breeding, some for experiments. Daniel felt anger burn inside him. They treat you like tools. Lyra nodded slowly, tears resting on her lashes. My role was decided early. Too early. Before I could speak. Before I could walk. They marked me. Trained me. Watched me. She touched the glowing mark on her neck again. Daniel hated the way her voice shook. He hated that she was afraid to even speak her story. Lyra, what exactly were you chosen for? Her silence made the air colder. Then she whispered the truth. I carry something inside me. Something my clan created. They call it the star memory. It is information very old, very powerful. It can control ships, unlock ancient systems, and open gates humans do not even know exist. Daniel swallowed hard. You have that in your mind? In my mind. And in my blood. Daniel's breath caught. So that's why they want you. Yes, Lyra said softly. They see me as a key. A living weapon. Something that belongs to them. Daniel stared at her. Did they force it into you? Lyra nodded. Since childhood. They inserted memory seeds. They trained me with painful mind methods. They said it was an honor. But it was prison. Daniel's hands shook with quiet rage. So you escaped. I had to, she whispered. They wanted to connect me to the main core. After that, I would never think my own thoughts again. They would use me forever. Daniel felt sick. You're not a tool. You're not a machine. Lyra looked at him, as if she had never heard those words before. My people do not think like you. They believe purpose is more important than life. A loud thud hit the outside wall, making her jump. Daniel put a protective hand near her arm, steadying her. The gesture surprised her. No one had ever touched her without commanding her. You're safe here, Daniel said firmly. She stared at him as if he was something rare. No, she whispered. I am only safe with people who don't know my secret. Now that you know, you are in danger too. Daniel shook his head. That doesn't change anything. It should, she whispered. Your world cannot fight my clan. Their ships could burn this whole village if they wished. Daniel took a deep breath. Then we won't be here when they return. She stared at him. What? We're leaving, Daniel said. You and me. Before they come back. Lyra's mouth fell open. Daniel, you cannot run with me. Humans run slow. You cannot hide from their eyes. You cannot travel through forests filled with their sensors. We'll try, Daniel insisted. Why? She whispered. Why help someone like me? Daniel paused. The lantern light flickered across his face. Outside, the hunters growled again. But inside, his voice was steady. Because you asked for help, he said simply. That's enough. Lyra's eyes softened. Filled with something she wasn't used to: kindness, trust, hope. But the moment was broken by a crash. The back window shattered. Cold wind and rain burst inside. A shadow climbed through the broken frame tall. Twisted, with glowing red eyes, one of the hunters had found a way inside. Lyra gasped. Daniel stepped in front of her. The real fight had begun. The hunter that climbed through the broken window was nothing like Daniel expected. It was tall, almost scraping the ceiling, with dark armored skin that looked like living metal. Its shoulders were broad, its arms long and strong, ending in claws sharp enough to cut stone. Two glowing red eyes locked onto the room, scanning fast, searching for one thing. Lyra. She stumbled back, her voice barely a whisper. Daniel, don't move. It can sense motion. But the hunter had already spotted them. It let out a slow, rumbling growl that made the entire room vibrate. Its head tilted slightly, like a predator deciding which prey to grab first. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. Fear crawled up his spine, but his body refused to move away from Lyra. Instead, he stepped forward, placing himself between her and the monster. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. Fear crawled up his spine, but his body refused to move away from Lyra. Instead, he stepped forward, placing himself between her and the monster. The hunter paused for a second, almost confused by the human's boldness. Humans were supposed to run. To hide. To scream. To stand. Creature released a roar that shook the walls. Lyra screamed and covered her ears, her knees buckling from the sound. Daniel grabbed a broken wooden chair and held it like a shield. The hunter swiped. The chair broke instantly, splintering into useless pieces. Daniel stumbled backward but kept his ground. "You're not taking her," he shouted. The hunter moved closer, muscles rippling, breath hot and sour. Its claws raised again. Lyra cried out, "Daniel, please don't fight it. It is trained for war. You cannot win." But Daniel did not listen. Something deep inside him, something fiercely human, refused to surrender. "Get away from her," he growled. The hunter roared and lunged. Daniel rolled sideways, grabbing the iron rod he had kept by the fireplace. He swung it with everything he had. The rod struck the hunter's arm and sparked like metal hitting metal. The creature hissed, surprised, not hurt, but surprised. For a hunter, surprise was rare. Daniel pressed on, swinging again and again. "Stay back. Stay away from her." The hunter snarled, annoyed now. It swung its arm, hitting Daniel in the chest. The blow sent him crashing into the table. The lantern fell, rolling across the floor and throwing erratic shadows everywhere. Lyra crawled toward Daniel, panicked. "Please get up, please. Please get up." Daniel coughed, his ribs burning. But he forced himself to stand. He felt blood in his mouth, pain in every bone, but he still stood. The hunter stared at him. Differently now. Not as prey, as a challenge. It roared again and moved toward Daniel, ready to strike the final blow. But Lyra suddenly screamed, her voice carrying a strange vibration. Her eyes glowed brighter than before, almost white. The hunter froze for half a second, confused by the frequency. Daniel saw his chance. He grabbed the fallen lantern, smashed the glass, and thrust the flaming wick toward the hunter's face. Fire, the one thing these genetically altered soldiers weren't fully resistant to. The creature jerked back, roaring as flames touched its skin. It wasn't badly hurt, but the surprise gave Daniel and Lyra enough time. Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand. "Run!" They rushed through the front door into the pounding rain. Behind them, the hunter roared again, furious, and climbed through the window to chase them. The storm hit Daniel's face hard, but he didn't stop. Trees shook violently, lightning flashed across the sky, and the forest looked like a maze of living shadows. "Daniel," Lyra gasped, "there are more hunters in the forest. They will block paths. They can smell me." "Then we'll keep moving," he said breathlessly. "We'll stay ahead of them." "You're human," she cried. "Your legs are slower, your senses weaker. Why are you doing this?" Daniel tightened his grip on her hand. "Because you needed someone. And you knocked on my door. I won't abandon you." Lyra's eyes softened in a way Daniel hadn't seen before. Not fear, not sorrow. Something different. Something warm. But the moment ended when a distant howl echoed through the forest. Another hunter signal. "They know we escaped," Lyra whispered. "They're spreading out." Daniel pulled her deeper between the trees. "Good, let them chase. We're not stopping." Branches whipped their faces. Mud splashed under their feet. Daniel kept pulling her forward, ignoring the pain in his ribs. Behind them, loud thuds shook the ground. The hunters were running, and they were fast. Lyra looked over her shoulder, horror filling her eyes. "Daniel, they're closing in." Daniel didn't turn. "Then we run faster." Lightning flashed again, revealing 3 hunters leaping through the trees, claws ready. Lyra grabbed Daniel's arm. "Daniel, if they catch us, I must surrender. They will kill you." "No," Daniel said fiercely. "They'll only take you if I fall. And I won't." Lyra looked at him, breath trembling. "Humans. You're impossible." Daniel managed a small, pained smile. "Get used to it." The forest shook as the hunters roared. The chase had fully begun. Rain poured like a waterfall as Daniel and Lyra ran deeper into the forest. The trees bent in the strong wind, leaves whipping their faces. Daniel's lungs burned, every breath sharp and painful, but he refused to stop. Behind them, the hunters' roars echoed like thunder, getting louder, closer, hungrier. Lyra kept looking over her shoulder, her eyes glowing with fear. "Daniel, you're hurt. You cannot run much longer." Daniel said nothing. Talking would waste breath he needed. He just tightened his grip on her hand and pushed forward. Lightning flashed across the sky, lighting the forest floor for a brief second. In that flash, Lyra saw one of the hunters leap between the trees, fast, silent, deadly. "He's on the left." She cried. Daniel changed direction instantly, pulling her toward a rocky slope. His boots slipped on the wet ground, but he kept going. He had never run so hard in his life. He had never been so scared. Yet something inside him refused to collapse. Something about protecting Lyra gave him strength he didn't know he had. But the hunters were not slowing. A deep growl came from behind. Daniel turned his head just enough to see a dark shape running on all fours like a panther, but twice the size. Its eyes glowed brighter than fire. "Faster!" Daniel gasped. Lyra nodded, though fear twisted her expression. She lifted her free hand, and a faint shimmer glowed around her palm, soft, blue, like tiny sparks. Daniel had seen it earlier, but didn't know what it meant. Suddenly, she pushed her hand behind her. A wave of blue light burst out, weak but quick, hitting the ground behind them. The mud rippled like water. The hunter stepped in it, and its foot sank suddenly, like the earth had turned to soft sand. It stumbled, roaring in frustration. Daniel looked at her, shocked. "What did you do?" "Small trick," Lyra said breathlessly. "Not enough to stop them. Just enough to slow one." Daniel nodded. "Good, slow them all if you can." Lyra shook her head. "I'm too weak. Running, fear. It drains my energy." She stumbled, nearly falling. Daniel caught her, steadying her with one arm despite his ribs screaming in pain. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, but her eyes said otherwise. "Yes, but I'm losing strength." Another roar echoed. Another hunter. This one closer. Daniel forced himself forward, dragging her with renewed determination. Then, just as they reached a cluster of giant boulders, they heard something new. Whistle, soft, sharp, fast. Before Lyra could react, Daniel shoved her to the ground. A spear of black metal flew past them, piercing a tree trunk with a loud crack. Lyra looked at the spear, her face turning pale. "They're using capture weapons. If one hits me, I won't be able to move." Daniel clenched his teeth. "They're not taking you." Her eyes softened again, but fear quickly replaced the emotion. "Daniel, you cannot fight a whole hunting unit by yourself." "Watch me," he said, chest rising and falling like a furnace. Lyra suddenly stopped running. Daniel looked back sharply. "Lyra, what are you doing?" She lifted her hand slowly, her fingers shaking. Her whole body trembled with exhaustion, but she forced herself to stand tall. "I need to protect you," she said softly. Daniel blinked. "Protect me?" "Lyra, you stood in front of a hunter for me," she said, voice fragile but full of something warm. "Now it's my turn." Before he could argue, she raised both hands. Blue light flickered between her fingers. Weak, unstable, but there. A shimmering wave blasted outward, hitting the surrounding trees. Leaves trembled. The air vibrated. Far behind them, the hunters roared in confusion, stumbling for a moment as if their senses were blurred. Daniel grabbed Lyra's arm. "That's enough. You'll collapse." She swayed dangerously. "I just needed to slow them. A little." Daniel picked her up, one arm under her knees, the other behind her back. She gasped softly. "Daniel, put me down. You can't carry me and run." "Yes, I can," Daniel said, breath heavy. "Humans have limits." but I haven't reached mine yet. Her eyes filled with something that wasn't fear, something almost like disbelief. Like awe, she leaned her head against his shoulder as he carried her through the rain. Why are humans like this? She whispered faintly. Why risk your life for a stranger? Daniel tightened his hold. Because you're not a stranger anymore. Her breath caught, and she closed her eyes. Clinging weakly to his shirt, suddenly a loud roar burst behind them. Daniel turned his head, just in time to see two hunters charging through the trees. Breaking branches like toothpicks, Lyra whispered, voice fading. Daniel. They're coming. Faster. Daniel's legs burned, lungs on fire, body ready to collapse, but he didn't stop. Not now. Not with danger behind him. Not with Lyra depending on him. The forest opened into a narrow, rocky path ahead. Daniel held Lyra tight and ran into the darkness. The hunters followed, roaring like demons. The final confrontation was getting closer. Daniel's legs felt like they were turning to stone as he carried Lyra up the narrow rocky path. The rain kept falling hard, washing blood and mud down his arms. His breath came out in rough, broken gasps. But he did not stop. Not once. Lyra's faint weight in his arms reminded him why he had to keep going. Behind them, the hunters' roars filled the night. The sound hit Daniel's back like waves of thunder. The forest shook. Branches snapped. Rocks tumbled down the hillside. The monsters were close, too close.